Volkswagen will invest $193 billion in electric cars and software. The German automaker announced a plan to accelerate its transition to battery-powered vehicles and bolster operations in China and North America. Volkswagen said on Tuesday that it would spend $193 billion on software, battery factories and other investments as it aimed to make every fifth vehicle it sold electric by 2025. The automaker, the world's second biggest after Toyota, will also focus on expanding its presence in North America, where it has struggled for years, and becoming more competitive in China, one of its most important markets, said Oliver Blume, Volkswagen's chief executive. Mr. Blume laid out a 10-point plan for helping Volkswagen pivot to electric vehicles, a path it began in earnest when it effectively abandoned diesel technology after an emissions cheating scandal in 2015. The plan's centerpiece are investments totaling €180 billion, or about $193 billion. Two-thirds of that sum will be channeled into producing battery cells, developing software and shoring up supply chains of critical raw materials. For me, it is important that we have a clear orientation of where we are going, Mr. Blume told reporters, adding that 2023 would be a decisive year for the company. It is his first as chief executive. He took over in September from Herbert Diess, who aggressively pushed Volkswagen to embrace electric cars but was forced out after just 4 years because of disagreements with the company's board. Mr. Blume hopes to use some of the proceeds of a 2022 initial public offering of Porsche, where he is also chief executive, to strengthen Volkswagen's electrification strategy. The listing brought in $43 billion. Volkswagen reported a net profit in 2022 of $15.8 billion, or $16.7 billion, an increase of 2.6% from the previous year, as supply chains disrupted by the coronavirus pandemic began to normalize. Russia's invasion of Ukraine last year caused energy prices to rise and contributed to high inflation, especially in Germany. Addressing those challenges while balancing the demand for combustion engine vehicles as the company pivots to electric vehicle production will be the main focus in Europe, Volkswagen said. We must transform ourselves into a technology and mobility services group, Arno Antlitz, Volkswagen's chief financial and operating officer, said at the Tuesday media event. We need to focus on our platforms, such as our hardware for battery-powered electric vehicles, a unified software stack, batteries, mobility, autonomous driving. Continue reading the main story. In the short term, Volkswagen will continue to produce combustion engine cars, which generate profits that the company needs to pay for the transition to battery-powered vehicles. In 2022, Volkswagen sold 8.2 million cars and trucks. Despite the German government's call for companies to diversify their operations in Asia, pivoting away from China, Volkswagen is continuing to invest in the country in partnerships with local companies. Volkswagen is the leading producer of combustion engine vehicles in China, but has lost ground to domestic car makers in the fast-growing market for electric cars. Last year, Volkswagen introduced an In China for China strategy that it plans to expand, including developing technology and software specifically for consumers there, including in-car karaoke. The automaker's problems in North America are somewhat different. After years of trying to become a bigger player in the United States specifically, it remains far behind U.S. automakers like General Motors and Ford Motor and Asian companies like Toyota and Hyundai. Volkswagen retooled its plant in Chattanooga, Tennessee, last year to begin producing electric vehicles, and it now produces the ID.4 sport utility vehicle there. On Monday, Volkswagen said it had chosen a site in Ontario for a new battery plant. And earlier in March, the company said it would put up a factory in South Carolina to build pickup trucks and SUVs that would be sold under the Moribund Scout brand. In Europe, a key element of the company's focus includes its first battery cell plant, a 2 billion factory that is rising out of a field in Salzgitter, Germany, near the company's headquarters in Wolfsburg. The new plant sits behind a site where Volkswagen has been building engines for more than 50 years and is slated to become the main provider of battery cells for the automaker. Electric vehicles are starting to look more like the rest of America's automobiles. Big. There's the Ford 150 Lightning, a 6,000-pound, all-electric version of the top-selling Ford pickup truck. Dodge's hulking Ram 1500 electric pickup, introduced in a cheeky Super Bowl ad this year. And even an electric Hummer, which President Biden took for a spin last month. The crop of beefy new models may make electric vehicles mainstream in a country where trucks and SUVs have increasingly ruled the road. But as electric vehicles have bulked up, they have also faced new questions over their environmental and safety impacts. Here's where they stand. Emissions impact. Experts broadly agree that electric vehicles are a more climate-friendly option than those that run on gasoline. But emissions savings are not equal across all electric vehicles. Size matters. As EVs get larger and heftier, their climate impact also tends to increase. The climate benefits you get from driving a larger EV depend in large part on the kind of vehicle you would have driven instead. For example, swapping a gas pickup truck for a similar electric one can produce significant emissions savings. Take the Ford F-150 pickup truck compared with the electric F-150 Lightning. The electric versions are responsible for up to 50% less greenhouse gas emissions per mile. But heavier electric pickup trucks often require bigger batteries and more electricity to charge, so they end up being responsible for more emissions than other smaller EVs. Taking into consideration the life cycle emissions per mile, they end up just as polluting as some smaller gas-burning cars. Whether they're gas-powered or run on electricity, bigger vehicles require more energy to make and to move, said Alyssa Kendall, a professor of civil and environmental engineering at the University of California, Davis. Even though all electric vehicles don't burn gas or produce tailpipe emissions, they are indirectly responsible for emissions from vehicle and battery production, and the electricity used to charge them, which may come from fossil fuels. Artelia Gilliard, a spokeswoman for Ford, said that electric vehicles like the F-150 Lightning would provide even greater carbon dioxide emissions savings as the electric grid continues to decarbonize. Over the past decade, Americans have increasingly shifted away from cars and toward SUVs, pickup trucks and crossover vehicles, with some analysts estimating that SUVs, pickup trucks and vans could make up 78% of vehicle sales by 2025. The new set of larger plug-in options could encourage a faster shift toward electric vehicles by appealing to a broader range of consumers, said Jessica Transick, a professor of energy studies at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Consumers have already joined long wait lists for electric pickup trucks, with Ford having taken more than 200,000 reservations for Lightnings, though it has struggled with production. Some people may need an SUV or a pickup truck for their job, Dr. Transick said, or they might be anxious about getting enough range from a smaller battery, especially if they live in a region with less charging infrastructure. Consumers should think about buying the highest efficiency vehicle that still meets their needs, she added. Raw materials and safety concerns. Bigger and heavier EVs have raised other concerns over their environmental impact and public safety, too. The batteries that power electric vehicles today, along with many personal electronics and appliances, rely on mined raw materials like cobalt, lithium and rare earth metals, whose extraction has in many cases been harmful to the environment, wildlife, water and local communities. So has oil extraction. The larger batteries in larger electric vehicles require more of these materials. The battery used to power General Motors' Hummer EV, For example, uses about the same amount of lithium per rider as 3 smaller car batteries or 240 electric bike batteries, according to a recent report. And it uses about half as much lithium as a battery that can power an entire electric bus. The same report found that the strain on key mineral supplies could be eased by reducing car dependence in the United States, downsizing electric vehicle batteries and ramping up battery recycling. Larger batteries have also added significant weight to many big electric vehicles, anywhere from hundreds to thousands of pounds. Research has shown that heavier vehicles, gas or electric, can be more dangerous in a crash for those outside of the vehicle, including other drivers of smaller cars and pedestrians, cyclists and wheelchair users. Heavier vehicles strike pedestrians and other road users with more force, said Beth Osborne, director of the advocacy group Transportation for America. Bigger vehicles that are taller at the front, like many pickup trucks, also limit a driver's visibility. In the United States, traffic deaths have increased in recent years, while fatalities in other comparably developed countries have been falling. There are a number of factors to blame, including dangerous road